You're listening to the Built in Barcelona podcast with Kris Rawcliffe. Welcome back to Built in Barcelona, the podcast where we explore the ideas, people, and projects shaping one of Europe's most creative and international cities. I'm your host, Kris Rawcliffe, and each episode I sit down with the founders, change makers, and operators who are building something meaningful, whether in tech, culture, or beyond, and choosing to do it from here in Barcelona. Today's guest is Sam Stewart, founder of the Relief Crew Foundation, a purpose-driven NGO connecting the yachting world with communities in need. Originally from New Zealand, Sam's career has taken him from writing for boating magazines to working as crew on super yachts around the world before a pivotal experience volunteering in a refugee camp completely shifted his perspective. That turning point led to the start of the Relief Crew Foundation, an organization matching skilled yacht crew with hands-on humanitarian projects around the world. In today's episode, we talk about how Relief Crew got started, the power of leveraging untapped skills and networks, and why Sam has chosen Barcelona as his home base while building something with real global impact. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kris. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I've been very excited about this episode, I have to say, ever since we met in Norsken not that long ago. Very excited to be able to share your story. I think it's a really interesting one.
Nice one. Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time to have me on and to help spread the word.
So yeah, let's dive in then. So can you take us back to the beginning? How did you first get involved in the world of boats and yachting?
Yeah, that's going back a few years now. I guess it was kind of out of necessity more than anything. So it first began when I'd finished a degree in journalism at university, and that was 2008, and there was not a lot of jobs on the market at that point. And there was one available for a junior reporter at a magazine called Boating New Zealand, and I had little to no connection with boats before that, but I needed a job. So I sort of, I bluffed my way through this interview and got on really well with the editor. Lo and behold, I became a boating journalist somehow and spent 4 years writing for this magazine and ended up loving it. You know, it was an industry that I really had a strong connection with by the end. Also got to the point though where I was a journalist in New Zealand, hadn't really spent much time out of the country or definitely out of that part of the world, and was sort of 25 years old thinking like, come on, like there's so much more outside of New Zealand. How can I get there? And at that point, there wasn't a lot of savings in the bank. And as a junior journalist, that wasn't increasing in a hurry. And it was kind of like, how can I see the world? Like, it's just not going to happen. And I had a friend who had been working on yachts, working on super yachts for a season before. And he basically rang and said, hey, I think you're going to love this. So on his word, I quit my job and sold the car and bought a one-way ticket to Mallorca, which is a bit of a hub for that yachting industry, and just started from there. And that was the beginning of, the beginning of the end, essentially.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing that you just kind of stumbled into that industry. I mean, what were those early years like when you were first on the first boats?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do kind of stumble into that industry, to be honest. That to get your first job, it's literally a case of just walking up and down the docks and like trying to catch the attention of somebody that's already employed on one of these boats to be like, hey, do you need a hand with, anything for a couple of days or whatever? And then you start to build up a little bit of a rapport. Or you find a job in a pub, because so much of it when you're green, when you're young, is just about employing someone that can get on well with the crew and has half a brain, and then you can be taught a lot of the skills on the job. So yeah, that's kind of the entry to it. And then those first years were brilliant. I loved it. I was in this completely new industry, and I was fortunate enough to land. The first job was a boat, an old tugboat that had been converted into something luxury. And we were traveling all around the top of Australia, through Indonesia, Borneo, just really like off the beaten track kind of places, and had a a cool crew that I was working with, lovely owners of the boat that were happy for us to, sort of cross that line a little bit more with them and interact and be a part of more of the activities that were happening. Yeah, I mean, the start of um, that industry is, you're young, you're learning a lot, you don't have a lot of responsibility, you're with interesting people and in interesting places, and everything is just, well, for me, it was just like, this is brilliant, working
Sounds
in BFD.
incredible.
Let's go. Yeah.
Sounds absolutely incredible. To be doing something like that in your mid-20s must have just been an absolute dream.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's just that complete sense of freedom, I think. And it really opened my eyes further to be like, I want to see more and more and more of this world. I never looked at that yachting industry as a long-term career option. For me, it was always, let's do this for a few years, have the chance to travel a little bit. And then it also allowed me to, work for a couple of years and then take a couple of months off to do kind of the backpacking that I was really intent on doing to, places like Central and South America. And then we'd go and jump on another boat after that. Yeah, it was never a career option, but I think for so many people, that is always the case. And you intend on doing it for a couple of years, and then 10 years later, here you are, kind of thing. Yeah.
And did you need any qualifications for that first job that you landed?
It's pretty minimal. You do a 5-day certificate that everyone needs, and that's sea survival, basic firefighting, basic medical, and then you have a health check, and that's it.
Wow, I would have thought it would be much harder than that. I would have thought that you would need a lot of hours of sailing under your hat as experience and like yacht master qualifications, that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and as you progress, obviously those things come into it. So when you want to move up the ranks, you need to do all your certificates and that sort of thing.
Sure.
But in the beginning, yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty much.
Amazing. Yeah, I actually for a short time before entering my career, so just after university, I had ambitions to become a yachty because straight after university, I worked in a sailing resort in Greece for a summer, and there I kind of got into sailing and took some yachts out, and it was a lot of fun. And I met this yacht captain who had bought. It's funny you mentioned that you started like a tub that had been converted. He had bought an unconverted tub in LA, and he wanted to bring it back to the UK where he was from. And he was looking for crew. And he was like, look, I'm looking for crew to help me take it from LA to the Caribbean, all the way down to Panama, through the Panama Canal and up the other side to the Caribbean. Are you up for it? And me and a few of my friends that I was working with were like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. So I was meant to be going on to do a ski season after the summer. And I canceled that to go and join this yacht. And oh man, I mean, it was an insane experience. Like the guy was very, very shifty, learned sort of the way in which he had acquired this boat whilst we were at sea, and it wasn't totally above board, and like we had to beg him to get like a life raft for the yacht. And also, I mean, it was a very crazy experience. But I mean, that whole trip, I was like, when I get to the Caribbean, I'm going to do exactly what you said. I'm going to walk around and try and find myself a job on a boat. And this is going to be the start of my yachting career. Unfortunately, the boat was in such bad state that when we got to southern Mexico after like 2.5 months, it just broke. Like one of the lines that holds the mast to the deck just came off. And it was like the mast was kind of like swaying a bit. So yeah, the whole thing kind of fell apart quite quickly. And I ended up having to be essentially rescued by my dad because I had no money, because he was supposed to be being paid and he didn't pay us. So my dad had to like fly me home. And if I even mentioned the word yacht after that, he was like, get a job. You are not, you need to get a job now. So that was the end of my yachting dreams. But yeah, I've always looked at people that did that as a career and just thought how amazing.
I think there's a lot of different experiences you can have, and for sure, the one that you had it's not necessarily that uncommon either. There's definitely some cowboy boats out there. Fortunately, I have been lucky to work on like really well run professional boats that
Yeah.
have largely stayed in one piece. So I guess the experience has been a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I some of the craziest people I've ever met have been in on docks. Like you come into port somewhere and you meet people that clearly have spent a lot of time at sea by themselves and are pretty strange individuals.
I was on a boat in Cairns, Australia, and we were tied to the dock. And I was working away one day, and I remember seeing this really old, maybe like a 30-foot sailing yacht, slowly coming into the harbour. And it had this guy on with a big beard, and it was just like pot plants growing on it and that sort of thing. It just was really not well maintained. And the harbour master came out in his dinghy, and he was approaching this guy, and this guy on the yacht yells out, "Where am I?" And this Australian was like, "You're in Cairns." And he was like, "Which country?" And he literally had like no idea where he was. I think, yeah, it's definitely this type of people that will just set sail, and they probably just love being on the sea without necessarily so much of a plan.
Which country? That's hilarious because Australia's massive and
Right?
completely so far away from anywhere else. That's hilarious. Oh man, that was very funny. So you started, well, obviously it sounds like you were on boats all over the world, but you started from Mallorca. How did you then come to Barcelona?
It was a few years later, and I was in New Zealand and had landed a job, and the boat was in Barcelona, and I basically I flew here for the first time and joined the boat, which was in the shipyard here, and we had a few months working to get the boat ready for the summer before heading out around the Mediterranean. But that was the first time I'd ever been to Barcelona, and I remember my mum saying years before, actually when I first bought that ticket to Palma, to Mallorca, she was saying, "Oh, if you get the chance, like go to Barcelona, Sammy, you're gonna absolutely love it." And I just said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sure I will." And then, that first couple of months that I had here was just like, wow, okay, this city is something completely different. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a spot that I'm gonna spend more time in the future for sure.
Nice. And I imagine it's a pretty active yachting community here, right? Because we've got some pretty big boats in the marina down in Barceloneta.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, Barcelona, Palma, the south of France, Antibes, these are all massive hubs for that industry, that yachting industry. So there's a cool community, if you're working in that space and your boat is tied up here for the winter or a few months or whatever, you normally park next to a bunch of other boats, and people are on similar wavelength, and maybe you've worked with someone before and now they're on a boat that's two doors down and you're crossing paths again. So yeah, it's something special, I think, about being in a marina and that kind of environment, and people are very friendly, and you automatically have a connection or a community just by virtue of being in the same location and having
Yeah.
a bit on that has a boat name written on it. It's like, oh, hey, you work on a boat, I work on a boat too. Great, let's hang out.
Yeah. Ah, cool. Yeah, it's funny. Like I've always thought that, like whilst being down in that part of the city, down by the marina, like thinking how amazing it must be with all the yacht crews that are, sailing around Europe and maybe spend a few months here in port in Barcelona. So yeah, it's cool that you got to live that.
I think also the beauty about Barcelona is, while it's well and good that you have a yachting community around the marina, it's also really nice to leave the marina and just be sucked into a city and know that, you're just another person on the street. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're in a smaller place like Palma, for example, a lot of the people that you encounter on the streets, especially around the marina, are connected in some way, shape, or form to that yachting
Yeah.
industry. And it can get a bit much, I think, like any industry, sometimes it's just nice to like get away from the people that work in it. And Barcelona has so much to offer that you can just like go and immerse yourself in an entire city with so much stuff to do that's not remotely connected to being on a boat.
Yeah, and I guess that must be really nice, as you say. I mean, you're spending so much time at sea with these people. Maybe you want a bit of a break when you get to land. And so, I mean, You were in the yacht industry for many years. You were saying before we started recording that you worked your way up to being first mate. So, and you know, all the qualifications and effort that go along with that. How did you then start to move towards creating an NGO? Like that's
Yeah.
quite a leap, quite a different path. Where did that idea start?
So I had been working on and off yachts for nearly 10 years, and I would often take, maybe a couple of months to go for a bit of a holiday and backpacking somewhere else around the world. And it got to the point where I made the decision that I no longer really wanted to travel for the sake of travel and my time off. I felt like there had to be something more that I could use that time with, and I wasn't entirely sure what that was. But there was one point during the summer season when I was on a yacht. We were pulling into a port in the south of Italy, and there was a Coast Guard boat in the port, and it was just rammed full of people. There was maybe 200 people in there that were clearly asylum seekers that had been rescued from the Mediterranean. And we were pulling in on this beautiful 50-meter boat, and I was on the back preparing the lines for us to tie up to the dock. And as we pulled in, everyone on this Coast Guard boat was just staring at us, and everyone on the boat that I was on was looking at this. And to see this kind of juxtaposition, like right in your face, was for me. I was like, this is so messed up, and it literally felt like someone had just punched me in the heart when I saw that discrepancy. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in this kind of space with my time off. And fast forward a few months, I was looking, okay, how can I use my skills from the boat to be of use in that industry? And I wanted to work on one of the boats that helped rescue people from the Mediterranean. And at that point, there was no vacancies, but I decided I really want to work with this refugee community. And the next possible place to do that was within a refugee camp. And Lesvos in Greece, little island on the border of Greece and Turkey, at that point had the largest refugee camp in Europe. So I made a beeline for that, looking at how different NGOs were operating there and who could I volunteer with, and found one to volunteer with for a summer. Took the summer off and spent it in this refugee camp in Greece. And it was so clear from day one that this is where I wanted to be. The office that the NGO had was a tent on the hill, and it was just a hive of activity. And I remember walking there for the first time and seeing everyone working from laptops on their knees, and there was just paper stacked up everywhere and stray cats walking across benches. And it was just like, it was a shambles, but everyone was just go, go, go. And they were busting their guts to work for people that genuinely needed help. And, on the boats, we bust our guts to work for people to make their holidays really good. And I was just like, no, this is where I want to put my time. So, um, there was no instant connection there, how I can make relief crew, but it was over that summer, I started to connect the dots a little bit and see that, wow, okay, even though this refugee camp and the yachting industry are at polar opposites, the wallpaper is very different, but there's so much crossover in terms of the skills that are being used. On the boats, if you're at sea and something breaks, you have to figure out how to fix it, and you don't necessarily have everything you need on board at that time to do it, so you just make do. And it's the same in the refugee camp. If something's gone wrong, maybe you don't have the funding to fix it, but you have to find a solution. So it's this kind of out of the box thinking that is very natural or second nature on the yachts after you've worked at sea for a few years, that can be applied directly into these kind of humanitarian situations. And that's what got me thinking, okay, there's something in here. If we brought in a bunch of yacht crew to volunteer, they're so used to just working from sunrise to sunset and not complaining, just getting the job done. I was like, okay, I think there's definitely a value add to
Yeah.
to be put in here. And at the same time, I had a bunch of buddies contacting me from the yachting industry saying like, hey, we've seen that you're doing something in a refugee camp. Like, what is that? How can we get involved? And that summer, I also ran a fundraiser when I was in the camp. I made a short video basically outlining what was needed and what it would help achieve within the camp. And that fundraising video got back to the owner of the yacht that I had been working on. And he basically called and said, "What do you need? How can I help?"
Wow.
And, the next day his sister got in touch as well and said the same thing. That they're an amazing family and they're very, very philanthropic anyway, but they had seen that someone that had worked for them and that they trusted and they'd known for a few years was involved with a project. And they were like, okay, well, if Sam's doing that, then I guess it's a good thing because we back him. So overnight, a bunch of funding came in, and
Wow.
that kind of got the wheels spinning as well. There's a lot of other friends that work on boats, and they also have a connection to yacht owners that are, I think there's probably a perception that yacht owners are very much like One Direction, ruthless, look out for themselves only. But in reality, there's a lot that are undercover doing a lot of different altruism projects, and it's just never publicized. So,
Wow.
um, you know, yacht crew have this connection to those owners, especially over the summer when owners are very relaxed and on board and willing to chat and that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, I think there's a few dots that we can line up here when it's connecting yacht crew to volunteer with projects, and then connecting yacht owners to help with funding for those projects. So that was the thinking, and it took a while to get that in place, but that was essentially where it came from.
That must have been so exciting for you to see that reception to the work that you were doing, that you had felt an immediate connection to that humanitarian work, and then to see quite quickly off the back of that some support coming from your connections and network within the yachting community, and sort of beginning to piece those ideas together must have been really exciting. And what was the kind of timeline after that then? So how from that initial idea, kind of the first fundraising piece that you did, to actually starting your own NGO in the Relief Crew Foundation, how long did that take?
About a year and a half.
Okay.
So that was the summer that I was volunteering in Lesvos, that it was sort of coming together. I ended up being employed by that NGO at the back of that summer to do their media and communications, and I spent nearly a year doing that for them. And then I actually I took a job back on the boats. I went back to the dark side for a summer, and that was working for that yacht owner who had been involved with the previous fundraiser. And uh, I was on a hike in Greece with him and his wife, and I said, "Hey, look, I'm toying with this idea to set up an NGO to connect yacht crew with humanitarian projects from a yacht owner's point of view. How would you see the buy-in? Like, do you think this would actually have any legs?" And the three of us talked about this for about an hour, and he came up from a yacht owner's point of view and was like, "You have to think about this, and that's going to be a challenge, but maybe we can look at it like this." And that was that. And then a few weeks later, the summer ended, and as he was stepping off the boat, he was saying, "Thanks everyone for the summer." And he said, "Hey Sam, get at me about that idea." And I was like, okay, yeah, like when somebody in that position says,
Yeah.
like, you get back to them, I was like, okay, that he's obviously thought about that. And so now I have to really like put some work in here. Yeah, long story short, a couple of months after that, there was an earthquake in Morocco, and I knew an NGO that was working to help in some of the villages that had been destroyed. So I put together a few other yacht crew, and we flew in and helped in some of these villages for 3 weeks. And it was kind of the test case. The crew came in. There was an engineer and a couple of other really practical people, and we turned up, found out what the job was, and it was just like bang, bang, bang. Yep, we know what to do. That's cool. We can take care of it. And it was the logistics side as well, thinking like, okay, in 3 days' time, we're going to be working in this village. Let's make sure that we've got all of the right materials already ordered and already delivered. So when we turn up, we're not twiddling our thumbs waiting for this sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
that's very much inherent within the yachting industry as well. It's just like making sure that every moment is accounted for. You don't waste a minute. And a lot of that is planning ahead, whether it's to put things in place to make it happen, or you're foreseeing what could go wrong to try and prevent it from happening.
Yeah.
So that worked really well. And then on the back of that, I set up a meeting with this yacht owner, and I went to him and said, "Hey, look, I think we have a model that we can scale, and I believe that we can make a genuine impact in a lot of people's lives, and I think we can have a good crack at actually changing the yachting industry." And I said, this is what I think it's going to cost to run an NGO for a year, and this is what I need your help with, basically. And
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, full credit to him. He's come in for the first 2 years to help with the overhead, and that's got us off the ground. And it's happened on a whim, kind of. There was no statistics or surveys or
Yeah.
proper
Well, I
sort
mean,
of like business analysis that you would normally do when setting up something.
yeah.
But in saying that, we're 1 year in now, and I've just been blown away by the amount of support that we've had from the yachting industry, from different crew that are saying, "Hey, when is the next project? How can we get involved?" From boats that have said, "Hey, yep, we've got crew that are ready to help. We've got funding that's going to help you as well." So it's gone bang, yeah, and really really happy with where we're at.
Amazing. And so a year in then, what type of projects are you working on? Can you give me like a good example from the last year of a project that you're particularly proud of, or that really speaks very clearly to what you're trying to do?
There's been a variety, and I think a couple of cases would be the one that we did recently in Ghana. We worked in a small village in the north of Ghana that had no access to sanitation. So everyone in this village was open defecating, going to the toilet in the field, which is the case for basically the majority of rural Ghana. And there's a lot of problems associated with that, the health risks, the safety, the dignity that comes along with it. So we connected with a local NGO there who was working in that community. It was a community-driven project, so it was the village that had said, "Hey, we think that this is going to be one of the massive things that would help our livelihood." So we were able to put together a team and come in and work on basically building a toilet for each household within the village. So there was 50 households that maybe had 15, 20 people in each household, a couple of different families living together. And in 3 weeks, we built a toilet for each of them. And it's not rocket science, the stuff that we were doing, but for that village, they had never seen that kind of plumbing before. And so the idea is that we had worked with that before, we'd worked with that in Morocco, and we were able to come in and say, "Yeah, this is something that we've done before. We know that this works," and basically like pass on that skill set to the local community, so that by the end of the project, they're super comfortable with it, and they're like, "Yeah, great, we know it. Any problems that come up, we can fix it." And then likewise, they can then take that to the village next door and replicate that project. So the idea is that we work alongside a community on their project. It's not us coming in being like, "Hey, you know what would be way better around here? You need this, this, this." So
Yeah.
that model's
Coming
kind of
in, yeah,
done.
coming in as the saviors, right? Like that's not what it's about.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's recognizing that the community has skills, and it's working alongside them to complete a project together.
Yeah.
And 6 months on, we've just had the impact report come back from that, and 100% of households have said that they have had reduced stomach problems monthly. So it means that they're having fewer days for the kids and missing school. And for the adults, it means fewer days off work because of stomach problems.
Yeah.
And when you're living day to day, that's massive. And then for the woman especially, for them at nighttime in particular, not having to leave the house to go to a field, that fear of stepping on a snake or whatever it might be that's out there, for them, they're like, this is an absolute game changer as a female to have a bathroom that is connected to our house is just, it's
Yeah.
something that we take for granted, right? In the middle of the night, you roll over and you're like, oh, I want to go to the toilet, but do I need to walk down the hallway? I don't know. Like, you struggle with that. But
Yeah.
in the rainy season, when it's just absolutely bucketing down and you don't know what you're going to step on, like, it's just, you couldn't even
Amazing.
imagine it. So that was from a construction side. That was one of them. And then a couple of months ago, we helped set up a hospitality training center connected to the refugee camp in Lesvos. So working alongside an NGO there, Movement on the Ground, one that we know very well, they had a training center, which is a warehouse just outside of camp. And in the past, they've been running barista courses, English courses, computer literacy, these sorts of things from that center. And they had made the call that they really want to kind of double down on this hospitality aspect. So we found some funding from within the yachting industry to essentially do a little renovation on that center and put in like a polished concrete floor and some like upscale the kitchen. We made a makeshift like hotel room and set up kind of like a service makeshift cafe. And we took interior crew from a few different boats, and they made a pilot program, a 2-week pilot program that was teaching courses in kitchen food prep, service, barista training, mixology, and housekeeping. And we spent 2 weeks on the ground running courses for anyone in the camp that wanted to use their time to, one, have a look at what the European hospitality sector would look like, and two, as a chance for them to take it on to upskill. And so after, it was basically a 1-week course that was offered, and you would have a chance to do each of those modules within that hospitality. And then at the end of the course, you were assessed on that, and you got a certificate that you could take as a camp resident. You could then take to an employer and say, hey, I'm not completely green. I can make a coffee. I can chop this. I can do whatever. It's like I'm a value add.
Yeah.
And on an island like Lesvos, which is largely dependent on tourism, they also have a massive shortage in that hospitality sector. So they're crying out for skilled workers. And then obviously residents from in the camp, people that have been forced to flee their homes, they're looking for a pathway to start that next step, take it on upon themselves to become financially and socially independent. So this is the way to for them to take that on and to say, cool, right? Once I'm legally allowed to work, here's me entering the workforce. So it's about one, creating pathways to jobs, but also filling that gap in the hospitality sector, and thirdly, like connecting the two communities, bridging that gap between the host community, which is the locals on Lesvos, and that refugee community, and fostering those relationships. Over that 2-week pilot, there was more than 100 camp residents came through that course and got certificates. And since then, I think we're up to, there's at least a dozen now that have been employed around different services within Lesvos. So in hotels and restaurants and bars, there's 12 camp residents that are now working.
Amazing. It's just such a great idea of connecting highly skilled professionals from the yachting industry. You mentioned a couple of things there, right? You've got highly skilled engineers that can build plumbing systems. You've got like extremely well-trained hospitality crew that are catering to some of, as you said before, some of the wealthiest people in the world. They are like top of the top in terms of when it comes to that hospitality side, and just connecting them with those local communities. I just think is such a fantastic idea. How does it feel for you? You mentioned like seeing the impact of these projects. Like, how does that feel when you see that impact report of the work that you've done?
Yeah, it's cool for sure, to see that. I don't know, I don't dive too deep into that personally.
Sure.
But I definitely appreciate that there are people that have significantly benefited from these projects, and I love that, and I think it's great that a community in need can really benefit from the projects, but it's also cool seeing the volunteers that are involved in these projects benefit as well, and coming away from it and hearing about their takeaways, that how it's impacted their lives, and their thoughts on, maybe it's their thoughts on a particular community and some conceptions that they might have had before, or also how they approach daily tasks in their life now as a result, and the things that they're perhaps considerably more grateful for after being involved in a project where you see that what you have in your day to day is incredible, and it's lucky, and it's not the norm by any stretch.
As you rightly said, all the stuff that we take for granted, right? It really puts everything into perspective of like, wow, a lot of the stuff that we complain about here in Europe, in reality, we've got very little to complain about.
For sure. Yeah. It's it is easy to talk about how hot it is, and it is. It's hot. Like it's not, let's not be honest. But I think when you know that there's people living in a tent in a refugee camp, wherever it might be in the world, it's like, it could always be worse. And that's not to say that no one's justified for complaining about something, but I think, having that perspective definitely helps brush off some of the smaller stuff in life.
Completely. And how do you find these projects that you're supporting?
From my time in Lesvos, have a lot of different friends that are working in different organizations that know that this is happening and have been really good at saying like, hey, connect with this person or connect with this person. That summer that I spent in Lesvos was with this organization, Movement on the Ground, who we've partnered with on a lot of projects now. So, having an intricate knowledge of them has really helped. The one we did in Ghana, they had seen the work that we'd done in Morocco, and so they reached out to us. We have a school build coming up in Ghana in a couple of months. So when we were last in Ghana, we'd put something on our social media, and another organization reached out and said, hey, we operate the school that's in the south. If you've got some time, come and check us out. And the last weekend, I flew down to see what they were up to. And as a result, we're now working on a project together because I've seen the community that they are supporting and what they want to achieve. And, it's really brilliant, the thinking that they've got and the big strategy that they have. So, just kind of these sort of fortuitous meetings have really made it quite organic at the moment. We also have a professor from Asade who is helping us measure impact and helping us scout different projects as well. So they know the different projects that would be a fit for relief crew volunteers, and they know some of the areas, the locations around the world that we're interested in working in, and they've gone out and sort of pushed it out to their network as well to say, okay, who can we connect with? But a lot of different streams. Word of mouth is so big.
Amazing. And what does your day-to-day look like then, as kind of somebody running an NGO after 1 year, having never done that before? Like, what does the typical day look like for you? Help!
Yeah. No, I just do podcasts basically. It's like,
actually, I see you drinking a lot of coffee in the office. Actually,
yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's just all chat GPT, coffee, podcast, and it's very varied. Because it's a very small team. So it's myself, Palak, who looks after the kind of the strategy from our social media side. And then we have a guy, Richie, who comes with us to the projects to film the projects and to create the content from that. That's basically our team. So it's very varied, from everything from project proposals to looking for new projects, doing the due diligence on those NGOs that we're interested in supporting to figure out like, okay, are you actually who you say you are? Where is your funding gone before? Who's supporting you otherwise? If we do this project, how will it be sustainable for years to come, rather than us just coming in and doing something? And then looking to connect that with potential funders. So that's a massive part of it, is analyzing the projects and then trying to find all the nitty gritty about those projects. Like, I need to be able to answer every question about it before taking that to a possible yacht that would be interested, to say, hey, look, we've got everything covered. We know all about this, the ins and outs, but this is essentially everything in a nutshell. So that's a massive part of it. All the accounting side of things. It's like, takes me longer because I'm not good at it. Communications is a biggie. Quite involved in the comms process, just purely because that's a lot of my background is in that space. So it's something I'm pretty passionate about. It just goes on, There's a yacht show coming up in Monaco. So at the moment, it's prepping for that. A lot of strategy, figuring out, okay, like, what do we want to achieve from that as an organization? Who are we looking to partner with? Why would they want to partner with us? What could we offer them as a result? What do we want from them as a result? Before a project, it's chatting with all of the volunteers that have expressed their interest and figuring out, okay, are you the right volunteer for this project? Because we won't just take anyone that puts their hand up, for a couple of reasons. If, one is, we need the best team possible to make the project as good as possible, because the number one thing is to support that community that we're there to help, and do that by making the project as flawless as we can. So to do that, we need to have the right team. And the flip side of that is true as well. If Kris wants to be involved in a project, but your skill set doesn't necessarily align with this project, you're going to get frustrated if you come and you feel like, yeah, I went, but I was kind of a little bit obsolete and I was twiddling my thumbs and it was good to be there, but like, would I do it again? Probably not. And
Yeah.
it's that kind of word of mouth for us as an organization in a very small community that could, it could go a long way to damaging the reputation of the NGO if someone doesn't have a positive experience on one of
Sure.
our trips. So yeah, there's a lot of consideration goes around that as well. Yeah, it goes on. There's a lot of different things that pop up.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm lucky in that I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I think I'm driven by this greater purpose that I know that if I work hard, then there'll be some people further down the line that benefit as a result,
Yeah.
and it's the people that really need it, and that's what kind of keeps me going. I think that fear that if in 5 years' time I haven't given everything I can to this organization and made as much of a crack as we can, I'll look back and be like, what a wasted opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's my driver at the moment.
Amazing. And so you've obviously decided to make Barcelona your base. What was behind that decision?
Well, I've spent a lot of time here since being on boats that would be doing a refit in the shipyard or just berthed here for the winter. And I think having spent that much time here and just gotten to really enjoy the city and feel comfortable here and have built up a community here that's outside of yachts were definitely factors that played into it. And then also for the fact that the yachting community is here, it's very easy to talk to our partners and to talk to boats and that sort of thing. It makes sense to be connected to a yachting hub and to be in this time zone. And,
Yeah.
I get on with the Spanish way of life. So, yeah,
It's not bad, right?
it's not bad. Yeah.
And what's your experience of kind of more local projects close to here in Barcelona, Catalonia, or Spain? I mean, do you look for those types of initiatives as well?
That's a good question. And it's something that we're just starting to dive into now because we've had a couple of boats reach out and say, hey, we're happy to have our crew go and help with the project and we'd like to offer some funding to it as well. But we're not necessarily prepared to send them to Africa for 2 weeks or wherever it may be. Is there something locally that you can do? And in the past, my mindset had kind of been like, we need to go off, we need to do these big projects. But, I think there is definitely scope to be helping out around the city. So we've only just recently started to look at, okay, how else can we be a benefit on the doorstep? And one of the things we're looking at, I got a meeting tomorrow actually, is with a social kitchen / cafe here that connects with refugees and employs them and takes them through everything from working front of house to back of house in the kitchen. So perhaps there's some way that, for example, we take the yacht chefs from 6 different yachts
Yeah.
every Tuesday for 8 weeks over winter, and they come in and they do some sort of a different kind of chefing experience with whatever the crew is that they've got. So this is the kind of thinking that we've got at the moment, but in the same space, very much open to whatever other projects are available around the city. So if you have any, or if anyone that has any connections that you think would be worthwhile to investigate, given that the kind of skills that the yacht crew have, then we're all ears. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the cool thing about this project, especially in its infancy, is we can pivot very easily and very open to looking at all different types of ideas and different ways to be involved. It's quite fun in that respect.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely have a think from my side if there's any projects that I know of that could be a good fit. Because as I said before, I think what you guys are doing is really special, and I'm sure there must be many projects here in Spain that could use the support of the people that you're able to bring. I will be interested to follow along over the next years to see how the local projects come along, because I'm very uneducated on that side of life here, and it's something that I'd be really interested to follow and know more about. Where can people follow along with what you're doing, the types of projects you're involved with?
Website is easy, www.reliefcrewfoundation.org, or our Instagram, which is Relief Crew Foundation, has got loads of up-to-date stuff on there.
Okay, great. Speaking of Barcelona, living here, do you have any hidden gem recommendations? Like when you're not working, what do you like to do here in the city?
There's one actually that I stumbled upon not too long ago, which is up around if you get off on the Metro La Floresta up in the hills, you can do a bit of a walk around that national park area, and there's like a little winery slash olive grove that you can stop off and have some tapas in there. But then on the way out of that, in that town La Floresta, there's a spot called I think it's Les Escales.
Okay.
And it's on a little intersection, and it's up on a hill, and you have this amazing view, big sky, and they make their own pizza and empanadas and brew their own beer. And after doing that kind of a walk around that park, like finishing up there towards the afternoon with the sun setting, sitting there and just having a little beer and homemade pizza was just like, oh, this is a gem. Yeah.
I'm going to have to get the link for that place. That sounds great, because it's funny that national park, the Coiserola, has come up on so many of these episodes as being kind of a hidden gem for people that live here. And my friends and I, we either like going cycling or walking in those hills, and we like pizza and beer. So I'm going to definitely need that that location. That sounds great.
Nice. I mean, it's so easy just to change the scenery. It's like 20 minutes on the metro, and then you're in a different world. And I think it's so easy to forget that if you're in the city and just feeling a little bit like, this is a bit much. Like, and I think even for me, because I love being in nature, even when I'm not feeling overwhelmed with the city, it's not until I get out there that I realize, actually, I needed that break. So it's like not waiting until the head explodes to go and do it. But it's there's so many beautiful walking tracks out there, and it is so easy just to get amongst it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really special part of the city. And as you were saying, like one thing I used to find when I was living in London, for example, was, every 6 weeks or so, I would have that sensation of like, I need to leave, like I need to get out, I need to see some green, I need a break, and I just don't really get that so much here. August is different in Barcelona because it's so hot, so you need to escape the heat. But the rest of the year, like within, as I say, I like cycling, so within 15 minutes on the bike, you're up in the hills, and you forget that you're even near a city, to be honest. It's really special.
It is, yeah. I mean, and even for me, I think one of the things that I love about Barcelona, and what I've realized is one of the draw cards, is the fact that it only has 3 walls. You have, when you go to the beach and you have this horizon, like it took me a while to kind of click to that, but I think that's so important for me, is knowing that I'm not completely trapped in a sense, being able to just, Barcelona, it's arguably not the best beach in the world, but to know that you have a beach like right on your doorstep, regardless of the quality of the sand, just being able to go and look out to the horizon is like, it's incredible. Like,
I love the way that you've put that. It's only got 3 walls. I've never thought of it like that, but that's so true. Is that, I mean, that's one of the reasons. So obviously we both work from an office space in Barceloneta called Norsken, which has the office has amazing sea views, which is one of the most amazing parts of it. And it's just amazing. Like you go there and you can sit all day just looking at the horizon. And you're so right. Like how many other cities in the world can you do that? Not that many, really.
Sure.
I've never really thought about it in terms of it only having 3 walls. I really like the way that you put that. And so what's next for Relief Crew Foundation? Obviously, you're a year in. What do you think the next 12 months look like?
More of the same. We keep building, so this hospitality training center that we've set up, we've found sponsorship from within the industry to fund the expenses for that for the next year. So that means they're going to employ local Greeks to run those trainings, and the center will keep going. But in saying that, I'm heading back there in a week's time with another group of volunteers from the yacht to do another week of training alongside those Greek trainers. So it's about bringing everyone together and learning. Okay, how can my skill set complement your skill set, and how can we deliver the best possible training for residents within the camp? And
Yeah.
that's an ongoing project that we'll dip back into on the regular, basically. So that's happening. We've got this school build that is starting in October in Ghana. We're looking at a bunch of other projects in Mozambique at the moment. So it's just more of the same. It's growing. The problem that we have at the moment is we've got more crew and more boats that want to be involved in our projects than we do projects. So it's a great problem to have, but at the moment we're spending a lot of time looking like, okay, what are some other NGOs that we can support? What are projects that are out there that could be benefiting from yacht crew? The long-term goal for relief crew is that at some point I'll fire myself. I want this organization to grow so big that it's outgrowing me, and we need someone else to come in and really take control of the ship, because we're operating on such a large scale. There is project for everyone. If your thing is working or volunteering with refugees, or it's coral reefs, or it's water scarcity or food scarcity, or whatever it might be, in whatever location around the world, we'll have a project that can connect, that can be connected with that. So that's the grand vision, is to really, crack this thing open and actually turn the yachting industry into something that is synonymous with helping in environmental and social and humanitarian causes around the world.
Amazing. I wish you all the best of luck with the mission. And as I say, I will do my best to think of any connections I can help with in order to help you try and find some more projects, because I think that's amazing that you've got so much demand from the yachting community that you need to find more and more projects to actually be able to place them. I think that just speaks volumes to you as a person, and what you've been able to create in just a year. And also to the appetite within the yachting community to really put their skills to good use in their downtime.
Yeah, that's it. I think there is a lot of genuine good that can come from this industry, and it's just making those connections to make it happen. So that's what we're here for.
Amazing. Well, I'm very excited to follow along, and I wish you all the best with your next project. Yeah, and just keep up the amazing work. It's as I said, since I met you, I've been very excited about doing this interview, because I just think you've got such a unique and interesting story, and I think what you're doing is truly inspirational. So I really appreciate you giving me the time today.
Oh, I appreciate that from you, Kris. Thanks so much for helping spread the word, and looking forward to catching up soon.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, that's it for this episode of Built in Barcelona. Once again, thank you, Sam, for sharing your story. From super yachts to refugee camps, you have created something truly unique that shows how skills and networks can be redirected towards purpose. If you're listening and you want to learn more or get involved, then do check out the Relief Crew Foundation website or get in touch directly with Sam. And as always, thanks for tuning in to Built in Barcelona. Catch you next time for another episode with somebody doing something interesting out of this city. Sam, thank you so much.
Cheers, Kris. Bye.